Can a man truly transform into a dark legend that terrifies the world for centuries? That night, within the dusty old archives, I discovered a name that appeared again and again among records of war, betrayal, and blood dried upon the soil of Wallachia: Vlad Dracula. As I opened those ancient pages, it was as if faint whispers from the past arose, the screams of victims, the clash of steel, and the metallic scent of blood lingering in the air. Every sentence in this historical record feels like a missing piece of a puzzle, leaving more questions than answers. Was he truly just a ruler defending his land, or a monster who took pleasure in the suffering of his enemies? History always hides secrets that remind us truth can easily be buried, silenced by propaganda, or cloaked in myth. And behind the fog of time, this case dares us to investigate, because the name Dracula has not yet finished speaking. The year was 1431. In a small Transylvanian town called Sighișoara, a birth record was made that would one day alter history. Here, a child was born into a noble Wallachian family. His name, Vlad. Yet what drew attention was not merely his name, but his bloodline. His father, Vlad II Dracula, was a member of the Order of the Dragon, a Christian brotherhood of knights founded to resist the rising power of the Ottoman Empire. From his father's title, Dracula, meaning the dragon, the child inherited the name Dracula, son of the dragon. But in the language of the common people, that very word could also mean son of the devil. Was Vlad's destiny from the very beginning written in the shadow of dragons and demons? Or was the name nothing more than a political symbol, later twisted into a legend of darkness? Historical records reveal that young Vlad grew up in a world steeped in intrigue. The struggle for the Wallachian throne, the looming Ottoman threat from the east, and the power rivalry with Hungary to the west. From the moment of his birth, his life was never about a peaceful childhood, but about conflict, war, and betrayal. And here, we find the first clue. A child raised on the battlefield of power struggles could hardly remain an ordinary man. If we wish to understand how young Vlad transformed into a cold-blooded ruler, we must look at one crucial event: his hostage years in the Ottoman Empire. Around 1442, Vlad, barely in his teens, along with his younger brother Radu, was sent by their father to Edirne, the Ottoman capital. The purpose was clear: political insurance. Should their father, Vlad II Dracula, betray Sultan Murad II, the two boys would pay the price. Imagine this: a teenager who should have grown up in the splendor of a princely court, instead living under the shadow of his enemies. What did he hear each night? The thunder of Ottoman war drums. What did he see? Foreign soldiers, disciplined, ruthless, and ever ready to invade his homeland. The question is, did this captivity break Vlad or forge him into something stronger? Historical records reveal that in the Ottoman court, he received a military education, learned the Turkish language, horsemanship, and the art of war. Yet behind this training lay trauma. He was forced into submission, humiliated, and is believed to have witnessed or suffered violence that planted in him a deep, burning hatred. Ironically, his brother Radu followed a different path. Radu adapted more easily, even becoming close to the Ottoman rulers, earning the name Radu the Handsome. Two brothers, two destinies. One became an ally of the Ottomans, the other grew into a man consumed by vengeance. Here we begin to see a pattern. A child, forced into the role of a political pawn, slowly transformed into someone who would one day wield terror as his weapon. But the greater question still lingers. Was Vlad's hatred merely the result of his childhood in Ottoman captivity, or had it always been his fate, written in blood since birth? When Vlad returned to Wallachia and finally seized the throne, the world soon witnessed a ruler unlike any other. He was not merely a prince seeking power. He was a sovereign who turned terror into law. The clearest proof? The method of execution, forever tied to his name: impalement. A long stake driven through the victim's body from below, slowly piercing upward until it emerged from the chest, shoulder, or even the mouth. The process could last for hours, sometimes days, while the victim remained alive, screaming in agony, their body raised high for all to see. Historical records claim Vlad used this method not on dozens, but on thousands. Political rivals, rebels, even petty thieves, all could meet their end on his stakes. One 15th century German chronicle describes how he impaled 20,000 Ottoman captives at once, creating a forest of corpses, so horrific that Sultan Mehmed II, the conqueror of Constantinople, withdrew in terror. But let us pause for a moment and ask, why did he do this? Was it the sadistic pleasure of a cruel man, or was it a calculated strategy of power? For other records suggest this. Under Vlad's rule, Wallachia became almost free of crime. Legend tells of a golden cup placed in the town square of Tergaviste, available for anyone to drink from, and astonishingly, no one ever dared to steal it. Thus emerges the dilemma. Was Vlad truly a bloodthirsty monster, or a leader who understood that beer could be more powerful than 1,000 written laws? After tracing the legacy of Vlad's rule, we are confronted with a great paradox. On one hand, historical records portray him as a ruthless tyrant, a ruler who enforced law through blood. On the other, to some of his people, Vlad was seen as the savior of the land. Let us examine the evidence. The Saxon chronicles of Transylvania depict Vlad as a demonic figure, impaling thousands at once, spreading terror without mercy. Yet, these chronicles were written by German merchants with their own political interests. They had suffered under Vlad's strict policies against trade monopolies. So the question remains, were these accounts true or simply propaganda? Then there are the tales from the common folk of Wallachia. They believed that although Vlad was harsh, justice under his rule was fair. No one dared to steal, no one dared to betray, and the peasants could live in safety. To them, a cruel ruler was far better than a weak one. So who was Vlad Dracula truly? Was he a sadistic monster who delighted in the suffering of his enemies? Or was he a realist leader who understood a bitter truth, that order can only be upheld through fear? This is the greatest mystery in our case. History is often not written by those who witnessed it firsthand, but by enemies, allies, or chroniclers with an agenda. Thus, Vlad's story may indeed be a portrait of cruelty, or a mirror of propaganda painting him as a demon to stain his name. And at this point, the line between hero and monster begins to blur. One thing, however, is certain. The legend of Vlad lives on, not only on the battlefield, but in the imagination of mankind for centuries to come.
Our case carries us across centuries, from the blood-soaked Middle Ages to the end of the 19th century, when a novel shook the world. In 1897, Bram Stoker published his legendary work, Dracula. The question is, why did Stoker choose the name Dracula? Archival research reveals that Stoker came across records of a 15th century Wallachian ruler named Vlad. He read the tales that spread across Europe, of forests of corpses, of a ruler who impaled thousands of enemies on stakes, of a tyrant so terrifying that his name echoed far beyond his homeland. It was here that the seed of the vampire legend began to grow, not only because the name Dracula sounded sinister, but because Vlad's reputation had already been fused with myths spread by his political enemies. In Saxon propaganda, he was portrayed as a bloodthirsty figure, sometimes even accused of drinking the blood of his victims. Was that fact? Historical records never truly proved it. Yet the image stuck. For the European imagination, Vlad was no longer just a cruel ruler. He was a creature of the night. Bram Stoker resurrected that shadow, transforming Vlad Dracula into Count Dracula, an aristocratic vampire of Transylvania, immortal, bloodthirsty, and haunting the night. And from that moment, the line between history and legend blurred completely. A Wallachian prince who lived more than 500 years ago was reborn as a symbol of eternal darkness, a horror film star, a pop culture icon, and a nightmare that never dies. Yet, the final investigative question still lingers. Was Dracula the vampire merely a work of literary fantasy? Or does he carry within him the echoes of a real man's brutality?
Vlad Dracula. To his enemies, he was a fanged demon, a sadistic ruler who spread terror with thousands of bodies impaled on stakes. To some of his people, he was a hero who defended the land of Wallachia with an iron hand, allowing his small principality to survive between two giants, the Ottomans and the Hungarians. History shows how easily truth can be entangled with propaganda. Vlad's cruelty may have been real, but how much of it truly happened and how much was exaggerated to make him a monster? That is the question that has never been answered. Ironically, the darker his reputation, the more immortal his name became. From the battlefields of the Middle Ages to the vampire tales that haunt modern pop culture, Dracula still lives. And here is where our mystery lingers. Can a man ever truly die once his name has become legend? Or does Vlad Dracula still breathe within every horror story, every vampire film, every night when we feel something watching from the shadows? History does not grant us certainty. Only one conclusion remains. Behind the myth of Dracula, there was a real man, and that man was far more terrifying than any vampire could ever be.